We are changing the name of our program, Senior Corner, to Senior Moments, because tomorrow you will forget what we discussed today. Our program features the Hamilton and Wenham postcard collections owned by the Kroll family and narrated by Annette Janes. Just a little word to pass on. By making things absolutely clear, people will become confused. Thanks for listening.
Well, we begin here at Asbury Grove. This is a trolley car, and I've never seen this postcard, so I think it's unique. It shows an electric trolley just outside the Grove, in front of the store in the waiting area that was there. This burned down a long time ago. This is another view, roughly, of the same type of trolley car. It's showing an entrance to the Grove, too. This is another view, but this is colored. They're open cars then, run by the Lynn and Boston Street Railway. This is about circa 1909. If you note the benches for seating at the store in the entrance and the large pillar. A 20-ride ticket on the Lynn and Boston Street Railway was $1. In some other places, it's referred to as the Boston and Northern. This is the Grove front. We're not used to seeing it with this big archway. Here's another view a little closer. This is circa about 1907. This very nice looking entrance. And then there's a little one that corresponds to the big archway on the right-hand side. Thousands of people came to the Grove on the weekends. They say that they had a police force of their own, actually, and they had up to 17 policemen at one time, if you can believe it. There were so many people in the Grove. This is a view of Hamilton Park. It's a really nice view of it. From what I can tell of it, it's Central Avenue. It's a little bit difficult to see there, but I believe it's Central Avenue. And it's circa 1908. So it's not really early Grove times, but it's still quite a ways back. Here we see the entrance to the Grove again, but now we see the stone pillars. The stone pillars were they're a landmark, actually, and they still are. This here is the post office. It's just outside the entrance of the Grove. And on the right-hand side of it, you can't see it yet, was the Asbury House. It was a summer boarding hotel opposite the Hamilton Park on Upper Asbury Street. This is it right here. It's the same hotel. This is circa 1910. This is one view of the Bates Library. The library was named after the Reverend L.B. Bates. He was Asbury Grove's first chaplain, and it houses about 2,000 volumes. And Grove residents could enjoy many reading choices for leisurely summer days. This is Mudge Avenue, about 1913, I believe the date I came up with. And now you just were able, in here, you see some newfangled automobiles. These large houses belong to various churches. Mostly they were Methodist churches, but they were in various areas in different towns. And they owned these hotels, and they rented them rooms to different people within their church. It's a really nifty car there that you can see. These are the tall pines that the Grove was famous for. The Grove area was purchased specifically because of these beautiful pines, and it made people feel inspired and closer to God. This is just one another of the large houses. I'm not positive if this was a boarding house or what it was, but there are nice waiting benches out in front there. This is Pleasant Avenue looking out onto Asbury Street. This view is another view of the Bates Library. And at the left, you see a little bit of the old tabernacle. By the looks of the cars, this is probably in the mid-1900s. This is a really quite old view of the tabernacle and the chapel. The chapel was built in 1884, and the tabernacle was built about 10 years later. This postcard is circa 1910. My husband lived in Asbury Grove when he in the summer times when he was young, and he said that in the little church they used to always sing "Come to the Church in the Wildwood." He said he remembers that as being such a happy memory. Here is a view of the Preacher's Hard and the circle in the pines. Here's another view of the Preacher's Hard. This other view coming up shows how carefully decorated the area was. You can see these are all wild flowers that people have put together, made nice bouquets before the preacher comes to speak. And here they have the piano brought out specially for whatever occasion is coming up. Music and hymns were a really important part of the service. Methodists were known for being really good singers in the sense that they really treasured the hymn books and the hymns. This is another view. This card coming up now is another view of the same area. And you can see the people sitting in and waiting for the preacher or for whatever's going to happen shortly. I always wonder how come people could sit in those pines for a long time. Sometimes the sermons were up to 2 hours, and I always think to myself, how could they sit there and the mosquitoes didn't eat them alive? But people say that there weren't really that many mosquitoes at the time, and maybe things were in a more natural order and the birds ate them most. I don't know. This here is a postcard, and it was obviously a used postcard because somebody has written that, pointing to the area where they are staying, and it's Heading Avenue. It's they're probably staying at the cottage for the summer, either with a friend or. And the little cottage on the right hand, if you notice, looks really kind of the worse for wear. A little bit looks like it's falling apart a little bit, but the cottages weren't ever meant, or most of them weren't meant to be winter homes. They were just mostly put together for the summertime. And they were a great addition in comparison to the tents that the Grove originally was for. Now this card is really quite amazing for Asbury Grove. I would leave my happy home in Asbury Grove for you. It's a little risque for the Grove, but anyway, it's a fun card. People love to send fun postcards. This is an interesting view of people walking towards the back of the Grove on the left-hand side. You could walk to Idlewood Lake, which is in Wenham, and there's a Hamilton side of the lake and a Wenham side of the lake, but mostly it's in Hamilton. And people walked from the Grove to the lake. I don't know what the circles are that are around the pines, if you can notice them. I'm not sure if they are blazed to show the path or if they were put on the trees because of the gypsy moths. Perhaps somebody in the audience will remember or know a little bit. I was very curious about it, but I'm not sure. I wasn't able to find any information about it. Here's another really idyllic view. Look how dressed people are for summertime. Now this postcard I have never ever seen, in spite of looking at many pictures of Asbury Grove and Hamilton history. I've never seen. This is a beautiful postcard. It's the Asbury Grove stable, and you can see the little tiny ponies, and look at the young boy, how he's dressed with the black stockings and the short pants, and the little girl with the big bow on her hair. Those ponies, I imagine, were for the children to ride, or on the right-hand side, you have a very interesting view of a windmill, possibly to pump the water for the grove. This postcard, I believe, it was on the left-hand side where the big barn is still there now, but I think it was on the left-hand side above it, just above it. Here's a view of Idlewood Lake, very idyllic, and it's in color. Here's another view of, or I should say, this is a picture of the chapel and the auditorium. And this is a picture of the Reverend L.D. Bates that I had said previously the library was named after. The reason they named the library after him, because he was the first preacher. You had to have a powerful voice and manner to keep an audience. And apparently he really had what it takes, because he was really revered. Now here's a very interesting view of Idlewood Lake as you come into it. This was made on the right-hand side, I believe, is right where the water of the part of the lake is. And this is a very interesting entrance to Idlewood Lake. The stones line each side, as you can see, to make it decorative and festive for people to come and visit. Idlewood Lake was interesting because it was called Idlewood Lake and then changed to Pleasant Pond. Or it was called Pleasant Pond originally, actually, and then changed to Idlewood Lake. Some minister thought it was a nicer sounding, and then they changed it back to Pleasant Pond. Now here you have people that were fishing, and here you have ladies all dressed up out in this Perkins's boatyard, Perkins's boat, I should say, and this is at the boat pier. You can't see this very clearly for some reason, but you can see that every single lady has a Gibson girl hairdo, and the way that people obtained this hairdo was they rolled the hair up on they were like called leather rats. They were like round things, and you just rolled your hair up on that. And it made your hair look like it was very full, and you could pin it up and tie it together. But nobody had that much hair. It just kind of looks that way, you know. And all the women had the same style. You can see that this boat is sitting very low in the water, but not a soul has a life vest on. And none of the boat pictures will have a life vest. Apparently they weren't even invented, or they just came into use really more or less after World War II. Here's another view of Idlewood Lake, and the color of these cards were not Technicolor in any way. A lot of these have been hand-colored. I'll show you one of them that has the most amazing shades of yellow in it. You can see these boats were never this shade of red. But this postcard is one of the most interesting of Idlewood Lake. This strange contraption was here long before Disney World was invented, and it's a diving chute and a swimming chute. And people came all over to see this amazing contraption. So it was so unique in its time. Here's another view of the picnic area. Look how formally folks are dressed for a hot summer day. Most of the time people came here by trolley. Very, very few people had cars in those days. You can see an elegant car here sort of on the right-hand side. But it wasn't the norm. People came by trolley. They came on Sunday afternoons to spend a wonderful day. And if it only cost 10 cents, you could come all the way from Boston and spend a beautiful day away from the hot city. And Islewood Lake in its time was quite an amazing place. Now here's a view of the dance pavilion. Big stairs leading up to it. Those stairs are still there at Islewood, actually, or Pleasant Pond. The public access point is just around in this area that they have now. Here's another view of the dance pavilion. This was taken about 1918. You can see now that the dresses are just a little shorter. Here's another view of Idlewood. Look at all that was going on and how busy a spot that it was. Here's an example of what I told you about the color. You can see this amazing yellow that colors a couple of hats and a dress here and there. Obviously, nobody would have that shade of yellow. This is a hand-colored postcard in that time. This was an area where they had swing sets set up for children, and it's also, you can see the Perkins boat landing a little bit further down. Here's another view, actually, of a similar postcard. What was interesting about Perkins, he at one time had a little bit of competition, because across the lake, a Mr. Germain opened up a similar establishment. It wasn't quite as elegant as the Perkinses, but he was a rival nevertheless. And it turned into quite a defiant and difficult situation. It wasn't a Hatfield and McCoy's, but it was really, apparently they played bad tricks on each other, and eventually Mr. Germain left and Perkins just went out. This is called the Haven, and it's one of the, interestingly, Idlewood had summer cottages, just like Asbury Grove did. One of the interesting things about Idlewood Lake is that people don't think about so often is that they had sookie races on Idlewood Lake. They were the same races that were run up and back of the Winthrop School on the old tracks. There were sookie races running there, and then in the winter they were run on Idlewood Lake. They'd clear the snow, and people would come there from everywhere to try to bet on the sookie races. This is called Brook Bridge, and it's a walk between Hamilton and there's a little bridge here that crosses between Hamilton and Wenham. Another similar card of the Perkins boat right up there. And this card, I think, is similar to one that we've seen before. Now, this is an interesting picture of St. Paul's Church. St. Paul's Church is just being built. Now, this is under construction, about 1907. It's under construction. Now, there was a Reverend John Ahern that was appointed the first pastor in 1922, and the rectory was built about 1924. But before that, the church was built. Services were held in the old Smith building, which is on Railroad Avenue. From 1899, there were Catholic services held in the Smith building. Most of the town at that time were Congregationalists, and the Catholic services were mostly for the servants of the people that worked in the big estates. A lot of them were French people, Irish maids. A lot of the Italian people came to do some of the construction and the stonework on the estates. This is an interesting, kind of a austere view of the Congregational Church. This church has a very interesting history because it was one time turned sideways on Bay Road. You can see it now the way it looks now. But at one time it was sideways to Bay Road. And the amazing thing is that in 1843, they just simply decided to turn the church around, and they did it. It's just so amazing they were able to do that in those days. But you have to think also that there was no plumbing, first of all. There were no electric wires and, that type of thing that really holds things down. These are views of the South School. The next couple of views you're going to see. A lot of people remember going to this school. Where the elderly housing is now in Hamilton is where the school was situated. At one time it held the library too. It was called the Jonathan Lamson School. Here we have a view of Depot Square. This is about 1894. Now on the right hand you have Bay Road curving to the right, and you can see it's unpaved. The Hus that you see waiting is probably a Hus taxi or a train. This little boy with the three-wheeled bicycle had to have come from a very well-off family. Very few little children had bicycles in those days. This was also at the railroad station. This is the same area. You can see on the left now, you can know that building is still there. That's Talbot's store. On the right-hand side is Connolly's, which Connolly's has been in existence for many, many, many years. And you can see some of the establishments that are on the right-hand side. But look at how many horse and buggies are in the square, how active it was at the time, and how busy. Talbot's, where we know Talbot's store was called Libby's. I think it was a hardware store even up until the 30s. Now here we have for the first time the railroad crossing gates. And yet you can see the road is still unpaved. It probably was oiled or, they didn't have that stone dust and that type of thing that we're used to seeing nowadays, even if roads aren't topped with tar or macadam. But this is the first one of the earliest pictures of the railroad crossing gates. Previous to that, they had a man that knew when the trains were due, and he would stand out and just simply flag down whoever was, coming, if they saw a horse and buggy coming, or later on cars, of course. Now here, this view is not that old. My son and I were looking at this, and we were trying to figure out roughly how old it was. And he said he thought it was about the early 70s, and I'm not really sure. Maybe somebody in the audience will know. That's Connolly's again, of course, on the right-hand side. And you can see the Joe Gavoni's store way on the far right. That's one of the walls of the store, I believe. And you can see the gas station, and so I'm not sure what the date is on this. The next few pictures are of the Gale Hamilton house. This particular view is in 1903. You can see the ornate gate. She was quite artistic, and it's said that she designed this gate and had workmen, put it together for her. She was a very interesting Victorian writer. She wrote many books, including Summer's Rest, Wool Gathering, Woman's Worth and Worthlessness, and Nursery Noonings. This particular view of her house, if you go down Bay Road you can still see the stairs, the entrance, and the part of the stairs on the left-hand side if you're heading towards Ipswich. You can still see. It's all grown over and wooded now, but this is one view of the house, and this is another view of it. She was a woman that was well off. She never married. She kept a diary, and in one of the parts that I was reading, I happened to read one of her diaries, and she had an Irish maid. And she said the Irish maid's child was bothering her because she was doing something. And so she said she tapped him gently with her hammer on his fingers, so he left her things alone. And I thought, ooh, what an interesting personality. Yet, she was unusual for her age. She was well educated, and she did write many books. She had no qualms at all about arguing the sermons with the ministers, and so she was quite an interesting character for Hamilton. Now the Congregational Church owns this building and its office, uses it for offices and classes now. But apparently, it's really true that Lafayette slept in this house on his tour. The Ockengays used to live here at one time. It's really a beautiful house. It's adjacent. You can see it's adjacent, close to the church. This is the Von Meyer house. Originally, it was called the Rock Maple Farm. He went around and bought a lot of the land. He finally ended up about 146 acres. He was born in 1858, but after 1896, he made Hamilton his home. He was a member of the state legislature, Speaker of the House 1894 to 97, Postmaster General, Secretary of the Navy. Parts of his house were moved from the front. It fronted Bay Road, and parts of it were moved back to the top of the hill. Right here, I think this view is still on Bay Road. He was in the Ambassador. This is Augustus Peabody Gardner's home. He was born in Boston. He was the son of Joseph and Harriet Sears Gardner. After his parents died, he was brought up by his uncle John Lowell Gardner, called Jack sometimes. And Jack was the husband of Isabella Stewart Gardner of the famous museum. This Augustus Peabody Gardner was once a president of Myopia. He was also a senator from the 3rd District. And he served in the Spanish-American War in World War I. He inherited the Sagamore Farm property in 1890 and was a permanent resident of Hamilton after that. The Hamilton's American Legion Post number 194 was founded in 1919, and it bears his name still. This is one view of the Brown's Tavern. This is right across the street right across from the Congregational Church. This is another view of it. This Brown's Tavern, many people think that it's the oldest house in Hamilton, but apparently it's been proved that it's really not the oldest house in Hamilton. Now this picture is in the late 1800s. It's on the corner of Bay and Cutler. The house itself was built they've proved in 1680 by Matthew Whipple. And it was a tavern, a stagecoach stop, post office, and it certainly is one of the oldest buildings in Hamilton. But it's been really proven that there's a house on Bridge Street that could be a little bit older. It's sort of on Bridge Street as you round the bend on the left-hand side. It has a stone wall around it. So even though this house is really so picturesque and it does seem very old, I'm not sure if it is. This is a wonderful picture of Green Meadows. As you know, Joanne Patton has just donated this marvelous property to Hamilton. This was the summer home of General George Patton, World War II fame, and also of his son, also a General George Patton. It's a very, very beautiful property. Here's another view of Brown's Tavern. Now this is a picture of the Willowdale Dam. The area of the Willowdale Dam was once a really bustling area because the Willowdale manufacturing mills were situated here. Actually, it was sort of like a little mini town there. They used the water power from the Ipswich River. Nearby, there were several stores, there were homes, there was a 4-story boarding house there, schoolhouse, several homes, and some of the homes from this, that once the mills burned down, the homes were moved from that area to Mill Street. There was about 5 houses on Mill Street that were moved from there. This old house I could not find any information about, so I don't really know what it is. There's a card that says it's 106 Asbury. This is an amazing picture of fishing in the Ipswich River. Obviously, there was no limit. Look at the huge fish. How proud these people are of having caught so many fish. There was no need to shop for a while for food if you had all those fish. This picture is interesting because in the background you can see it kind of looks like a boat or something. It's apparently some type of a stage production. I'm not sure if it took place at Asbury Grove or where it was, and maybe somebody in the audience will know where this came from. Part one on the right hand side kind of looks like somebody has a judge's wig on, another, the two men in the front sort of made to look like scamps. So I don't really know. Couldn't find any information on this picture. This is the beautiful entrance to Myopia. Myopia was built in 1772 by Colonel Robert Dodge. He was a farmer, and he was also a Revolutionary War hero. He fought at Bunker Hill. The farm was sold to the Gibney family in 1851, and it was purchased by the Myopia Hunt Club from them in 1891, though they had been leasing it from the Gibneys for a while. It was 149.5 acres, and it's sold for $20,000. That was a substantial amount of money at those times. And here we see the Hunt Club, the areas of all the beautiful buildings of Myopia. It's a beautiful restaurant now, and here we see a nice view of the Myopia Hunt Club stables, where they keep some of the horses and the dogs. You'll see some of the pictures of the dogs. Mostly they used to have beagles and hounds, but now they claim that they mostly keep just hounds. It's very, very colorful to see the hunt on, usually Thanksgiving Day is about the time that you see them running, all dressed up with the red coats and hats. This is playing polo on the Myopia fields. And here I have another picture of the hounds. Now the first polo game in Hamilton was played on Ellis Field, which is the field right near Myopia, at the Dodge Gibney Farm. But the original Myopia Hunt Club actually began in Winchester, Mass. in 1879. And of course it was called Myopia because the founders all needed to wear glasses or couldn't see very well, so they were myopic, so the Myopia Club. Here we have the hounds going over the bridge. A really nice picture of the community house. This community house was donated by George and Emily Mandel in memory of their son Samuel. and seven other local men killed in World War I. So imagine 8 people from one community in World War I. Such a small community at that time, too. It was really a very generous gift by the Mandels. You can see the statue in the front was modeled after, with his brother as a model. It's well used, and you can see his gathering. It looks, I'm not sure if it's a Memorial Day thing, but see how well dressed the people are. Another picture that I'm not really sure what it was. This is a beautiful view of the Ipswich River. It's always been a favorite place for canoes and small boats. It's one of the principal rivers of New England, actually, and it rises and begins in Burlington in an area called the Maple Meadows, and it runs through many towns, and it empties out, of course, in Ipswich Bay. It goes through Reading, Danvers, Middleton, Topsfield. It's a very beautiful river. So much of the water is used from it now that we have to be very careful that it doesn't run dry.